I picked up some really cheap metallic art supplies and I've got no idea if these are going to be amazing or a disaster. These all together were actually under £18, so we are going to test them properly and see if we can really create something beautiful. So get cozy, grab a cuppa, and let's make something magical. I am not expecting perfection here. I just want to see how they behave, how they might layer, and what kind of effect we can get. I have this little sketch that I did out and about at a local park, and it's just a tree, and obviously, of course, I made it a little bit magical. So I am going to use this today as my reference, and we are going to attempt to paint something like this using these super cheap metallic supplies. Oh, okay. So these did not get very wet. I sprayed them heavily with water, and it's like they have just soaked up the water. So I wonder if they're a bit more like gouache than watercolors. Oh, there we go. Look, I mean, I've had to make an actual puddle of water. Okay, wow. Didn't expect that. They go on super translucent. But isn't it fun just to play and experiment? And if you are new to painting or any form of art, I just encourage you to have a sketchbook, because working in a sketchbook kind of takes the pressure away. You don't feel like you have to create some beautiful piece of art. You can just play and experiment and see how it goes. I am loving the sparkles that are in these metallics. I'm quite impressed with the pigment now that they've kind of had time to soak up and absorb the water. It is actually making quite a rich paint for something that has got that metallic effect. Right, let's go in with one last little pop of colour in this background, and we'll see if we can get a little bit of silver just to grey out some of this, and then we're going to dry this off and we're going to come back and work on top as a second layer. I suppose the real question that we're answering here is, can you actually make good art if you can only buy cheap art supplies? Because let's face it, we do know that some cheap art supplies just don't give you the effect that you want. They don't have enough pigment, they don't go on the page well, but then other cheap art supplies are absolutely amazing, and not everybody can afford to go out and buy super expensive art supplies. And I am a firm believer in just starting and using whatever you can get your hands on. Now I'm using the paint much thicker, so a lot less water and a lot more paint, and I'm just going to start adding in the shape of this big tree. So I would say that these are kind of halfway between watercolors and halfway between a gouache. Obviously they are metallic again, so they are going on a little bit different to a normal paint. but for what they are and the price they were, I'm very surprised. I feel like these are going on super nicely and that we're actually getting somewhere and getting a bit of an effect that we want. So we're gonna need to go in with this darker brown now. Ooh, I mean, look at that. It is absolutely lush. Wow, it's like the most beautiful coppery, gorgeous. Oh, well, that's an enchanted 3.5. Look at that. So and I am really surprised now at just how well these paints are going on and how well they are layering. So they're definitely, if you let the water absorb into the paint and just keep mixing it, it's definitely giving more of that gouache texture than a watercolor. So that's quite interesting. I am gonna add a tiny little bit of this dark grey into this tree. We have got these beautiful brush markers, fluid metallic ones from Dolecraft's Paper Mania, and then I've got these metallic colored pencils which say premium quality, so we're gonna see how they go. And then we've got the metallic highlighters. They are from Faber-Castell, so they are a slightly more expensive brand, but again, I picked those up in my TK Maxx Art Haul, so I got them super cheap, so they're still cheap to me. I'm actually surprised at how well these paints are going on and just how well they're layering. So I actually decided just before I dry off my darker areas in the tree, I'm going to add in a little bit more of a hint of what's going on in the background here. So and I'm just going to put a little touch maybe of blue and green together into this. Yeah, they don't mix brilliantly, so we're kind of stuck to the colors that we've got, which is fine. We are gonna go in with pens and pencils on top, so that's going to give us a much stronger range of colors. But for now, we're going to dry this off and come back, and I think we're done with the paints and we're going to move on to the rest of the supplies. It is very important that if you are going to layer pens or pencils on top of paint, that you make sure that paint layer is completely dry before you start. I think it's shaping up really well. I think we might be on the edge of proving that you can actually create something very beautiful and very magical out of cheap art supplies. That I think I'm going to use these highlighters just to put in a few extra little details in the background. So they're quite translucent because they are a highlighter, and that's a good thing here. They are metallic again, so they've got that little bit of shine in them. But obviously with the shape of the highlighter nib, I can get much thinner lines than I was able to get with my paintbrush, my little cheap paintbrush. So I thought it might just be fun to put in a few hints of trees and branches into the background here. do. So I want to see how this green looks. I'm going to test it down here, because if it turns out to be quite strong, then I'm quite happy for it to be grassies. Yeah, it's going to be quite an intense color because it's quite a dark green. So this is definitely going to be something that is closest to us. So a little tip, if you are starting out in painting, things that are in the distance tend to be paler, kind of slightly more blurry, slightly more blue, slightly more grey, and then things in the foreground will tend to be a bit brighter, have more contrast, have more depth about them, and be a bit darker or a bit brighter. But I want some of that yellow paint showing through, because that's the grassies that are even further back. These are just the ones that are maybe closer to the tree. I am really surprised at how these are going. And I'm just putting in a few wiggly lines to represent the shapes that you get on the bark. And you can even purposely do one that kind of creates like a knot. Now I can't decide how much we are layering this up, because I actually think the paints as the base of the tree turned out so beautifully. I am hoping that this is going to be slightly darker than this one, so that I can get, oh no, it's not. There we go. See, you just got to play an experiment. It is lighter. It is much lighter. It is very, very yellowy, which is good because it's giving me a nice contrast to get proper bark shapes on this. But I'm kind of almost wanting to go back on top with some of that really dark metallic grey that was just making this tree look absolutely awesome in terms of depth. I feel like this is making our tree very, very orangey, which I had not planned, but we're going to go with it. Try a few more supplies and see how it comes together. So, are these going to go on very green? Yeah, but you know, sometimes you get little bits of moss on trees. So I'm quite happy to put on little bits of moss onto this tree just to pull some of that orangey yellowness back. But and then what we're going to do is we're going to hope that this gold is a very yellowy gold, and we're going to use it as a little highlight. So we're going to use it to put in some more wiggles along the tops of our branches or on the side of the tree where we think our light might be hitting it. I think before we go any further, we are gonna layer back in a little bit more of the brown that we used for the tree and a little bit more of that dark grey. Oh, again, that is surprising. These paints might be the complete success story of this experiment. These are so lovely, and it's just going really nice. It's not fully covering the marker strokes. It's not too translucent. I feel, yeah, these might be my winning. And then we're going in with this dark grey again, and we're just going to pick out some of those darker areas again. I am going to use that yellowy gold marker to just put in where the windows are going to be, because we want that to be a kind of glowing window effect. So I feel like the gold is going to really help with that. And then I think maybe, shall we give it a purple base for the door? I'm not going to do a see-through door, so we're going to go, oh, that's a nice contrast. We're going to go for a purple base for the door, and then use the gold again to create the tops of our stairs. Right, let's get in with these colored pencils. I have got high hopes for these colored pencils helping me bring all of this together. So we're gonna go in with my darkest edge of my tree. This is the darkest brown I've got, so I'm definitely gonna have to grab out that black. Let's go in with the black, and just because this I do want to be my darkest edge over here, so we're gonna just wiggly in. Is that a technical term for using a colored pencil? Maybe. Wiggle in some bits of bark with a darker color. This is just for fun and playing and experimenting, and that's why we do things in our sketchbook. It's just a sketchbook. If you don't love it, it doesn't matter. You don't have to show it to anybody. You should keep it. I think it's very good to always keep your sketchbook doodles so you can see your progress. And honestly, even if you don't like something when you've just finished it, when you come back to it, you might actually find that you really, really love it. But do you know what? These are super cheap. I have looked up this brand, Nasua Fine Art. It says improved premium quality. These are actually really nice pencils. These are super nice, and these were cheap because I got them in TK Maxx, but they were also cheap if you had bought them brand new. So these are a really cheap art supply, and they're going on really creamy. Like they've got some nice coverage, and they're really, really beautiful. I'm just penciling in a few kind of stripes on the door, as if we've got some lines that might be wood. And I've also got a really nice dark purple here as well. And so since we went purple on the door, we'll put a little bit of that in. I do want to put some window frames in across the windows. Whichever colors you use, if you bring them into somewhere else on the page, it can really help. So let's see how this one goes. Yeah, it's not really showing up, so we're not going to bother. Let's go in with a more bluey green, which will give us the hint of there being some shadows again. So quite happy to go in with a little bit of a bluey green. I think to finish off, what we're going to do is we're going to see how these two greens behave down here. This one might just still be a little bit too pale, but we're just flicking in a few extra bits of grass and maybe putting a little bit of it down onto the ground there. I might add a little bit of like tapping and dotting as if there's like a trailing plant, and we could put some paler green through that as well, but maybe there's a little bit of a trailing plant that comes around this tree and then just winds its way around like it's some ivy, but it's kind of gone round in a magical way. Just lots and lots of little dots, and if it's gone up here, maybe it comes up here. Oh yes, right, let's add a little bit of paler green into that. So quite often these kind of paint marker pens actually work better if you put the dark color down first and then you work a paler color on top. And then just the odd little bit of gold. What is it? Is it like maybe it's like actual garland that the fairies have put round their tree. And a little bit, is the silver going to show up? Oh, I think the silver might just show up a little bit. Obviously silver is not a color that we would get in nature, but I just kind of felt like it's metallic silver, so it's going to reflect the light. So that little paler, again, highlight might just reflect the light. And then let's go in, because we've got purple door, let's go in with the pink and actually do as if there are little clusters of flowers, and that would make sense because it's kind of the same color of flowers that are on the around the garden of this enchanted tree. Lastly, I feel like we still need a little bit more dark down here and a little bit more kind of shadow. And I wish there was a way to somehow add some magical fairy lights or a lantern, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do it with the pens. The only thing I can think to do, and this is going to be a total risk, let's just risk it, let's just risk it, is to draw in a black string and then add the gold and the silver of these pens. So oh, I know, could we do something that looks like a little lampposty thing here? I'll try and get it dark enough that we can see it, and then there's another little lampposty thing here, and then there is a string of lights between those, and let's hope that I can make that work. Now I feel like we're missing something over here. What if there is a hanging little lantern over there? Right, here we go. Let's hope this works. I've got no clue. I'm just making this up as I go along. So that's going to be the start of my lantern, and these are going to be the start of our fairy lights. That if I go in with this silver, that it's gonna kind of make them pop and make them stand out. So let's go for it. So And I might let that dry and just come back and do a second layer with the silver so that it really pops out. But I'm absolutely shocked. I think we've done it. I think we have taken a bunch of art supplies that individually are all super cheap, and most of them are super cheap brands. Yes, you're not going to always want to paint in metallics, but it was super fun. And I think we have managed to create something that is quite beautiful. So remember, just relax, play, create, and you will make something magical.